Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Thursday, everybody. I hope your day and your week have been going very well so far. Got a new day, which of course means a new NBA player prop video to share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day comes some new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. I have 5 NBA player props to go ahead and share with you guys in today's NBA slate. But first, guys, before we dive into today's video, a quick little recap of how we did last night. And guys, the good times, they just keep on rolling. 3-1 last night, really solid performance. A couple of sweaty picks, though. Nikola Jokic over 11.5 rebounds. He finishes with 12. Kawhi Leonard over 25.5 points plus assists. He finished with 26 points plus assists. So some really narrow caches there. Even Tyler Hero over 30.5 points plus assists. Finishes with 34 points plus assists. So some sweats to be sure, but overall really solid night. The only loss with Anthony Davis. I talked about it yesterday. I wanted to take Luka. I should have taken Luka. He had a crazy game, but it just felt like such a square pick. Everybody was on it, but sometimes those square picks, the sportsbooks let us get them every once in a while. But overall, 3-1 last night, guys. 1.70 units profit. We are now 197, 158 in our single bet category. When you combine single bets and parlays, we are up nearly 33 units in profit on the season. So a really good run this year. We are narrowing in on 200 single bets cashed on the season. We'll hopefully get there before the end of the regular season. But yeah, some really solid performances, guys. Let's keep the good times rolling. I got 5 player props in tonight's slate. We're kind of narrowing down the final days of the regular season. Some big playoff implications at stake in some of these games. So really excited to dive into today's picks. I want to say thank you for yesterday. I obviously shared a very personal story about the origins of the bushy eyebrow. You guys were awesome, all the interactions and whatnot. And that's kind of the point, is we're a community here, learning more about you guys learning more about me. I know we're here, most of you guys are here just for picks, but I view it as a community, and it's always fun to share some stories and talk a little deeper beyond just obviously giving out the picks. I did want to reiterate, though, because I saw a lot of comments about it. Nobody crossed any lines. Nobody said anything mean or rude or anything. I just wanted to share the story. Everyone's been pretty respectful here in these comments for the most part over the 2 years I've been here. But yesterday's video did make me realize that I want to interact with you guys more. I want to learn more about you guys. So if you are watching today's video at this point, let's just start off with something simple. I want to start off by learning, what is your favorite NBA team? So if you're watching today's video, guys, comment what your team is down below in the comment section. With that out of the way, let's dive right into today's picks. Jumping right into the outlier screen, guys. Like I said, please go ahead and comment what your favorite NBA team is down below in the comments. Let's get to know each other a little bit more in this community. I can learn more about you. You can learn more about me. You can all learn more about each other and really build a nice betting community here at Guy Boston Sports. All right, guys, starting things off, our first player prop in today's slate comes from the Cavs-Pacers game, 7 p.m. tip-off. And I'm starting things off with a player that has burned me a time or two in the past, but I'm going to take a gamble on him here today. We're going Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers over 27.5 points plus assists. Now, we're getting this one for -115 over on DraftKings. It is available on a varying number of sports books for a number of varying odds. As always, guys, make sure to go ahead and shop around for the best sportsbook odds available. And he's burned me a lot in the past, but the data is too good and the matchup seems to be too good to go ahead and pass up. Tyrese Halliburton has cashed this over in 8 of his last 10 games, averaging 29.3 points plus assists per game over his last 10 games. Go ahead and stretch the data out to the last 20 games, an 80% hit rate, 16 of his last 20, averaging 31.55 points plus assists per game over his last 20 games. Continue to go ahead and stretch the data out to the entire season view for Halliburton. Pretty solid numbers, a 54% hit rate on the season. He's cashed the over in 39 out of 72 games, averaging 27.76 points plus assists per game overall this season. So some pretty good numbers here across the board for Halliburton. And from a head-to-head perspective against the Cavaliers, not too bad either. 3 of his last 5 games against Cleveland, he's cashed the over. That's a 60% hit rate. He's averaging 25.8 points plus assists per game over those last 5 matchups. Now, the numbers are a little bit skewed due to the fact that the only time they played this year, I should say, the only time Halliburton's played Cleveland this year, he got hurt in that game. He only played, I think, 18 minutes. To be fair, even in 18 minutes, finishing with just 2 points and 5 assists is not all that great. But yeah, he only played 18 minutes in that game. He didn't take only 5 shots. I think I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure he got hurt in that one. Now, I should mention regarding this head-to-head data that the majority of those caches, actually all of the caches that are on the screen here are from last season's numbers. He's only played Cleveland once this year, so we don't have a lot to go off of this season. And Cleveland defensively overall, very good versus point guards. Top 10 overall in points and assists allowed. And if you do go ahead and narrow it down to, let's say, the last 7 games, Cleveland's still one of the best defensive teams in the NBA against the point guard position. So why take this player prop then? Well, honestly, Cleveland, they are packing it up. They don't need to play these games. They've already clinched the 1 seed. They have nothing to go for here. They're going to start resting their players for a hopeful long playoff run. No Garland tonight, which is the key here because Garland is the reason why they're so good defensively against point guards. No Garland, no Mitchell, no Mobley, no Max Strus. Right now, Jared Allen's the only regular starter that's projected to play in this game for Cleveland. So Halliburton should have a good matchup here. Now, obviously, a lot of people would say, well, if they're sitting everybody, why would you bet this? This could be a blowout. Well, Indiana has something to play for here. I think I'm mostly caught up with all my playoff seeding stuff, but I know for a fact, if Indiana wins tonight, they officially clinch at worst the 4 seed, but they're only 2 games back of the Knicks right now for the 3 seed. And the Knicks right now, they play Detroit tonight, kind of a tough matchup for them. And the Knicks are without Anunoby and without Josh Hart and without Mitchell Robinson against Detroit. So the Knicks lose tonight, the Pacers win. Now all of a sudden, Indiana's 1 game back of the Knicks with 2 games to go. Things get a little interesting there. So there is still something at stake for the Pacers, including, at the very least, if they win today, they officially confirm they have at least the 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, which is, somewhat important, I would say. So there are stakes. You have a Cavs team that's resting all their good players. Halliburton, even if he doesn't play a full 30-plus minutes, I think as long as he plays around 25, we should be good to go here, considering the Cavs are going to have most of their bench guys in. So that's our first player prop in today's slate. And speaking of Knicks-Pistons, guys, that's the next game we're going to go ahead and move on over to 7 p.m. tip-off. We got Mikal Bridges of the New York Knicks over 20.5 points plus assists, which I'm getting for -110 over on BetMGM. Again, available on multiple sports books for varying odds. Like I just mentioned, the last player prop, the Knicks, a lot of guys out right now with some injuries. No Anunoby, no Josh Hart, no Mitchell Robinson. So some pretty big injuries there for the New York Knicks, which obviously creates a number of opportunities for Mikal Bridges. Now, the biggest thing that I'm interested to see here is with Josh Hart being out and Anunoby being out, does Bridges still play sort of the shooting guard role? I know we're kind of in this era of positionless basketball and naming guys by position doesn't really matter, but he does line up traditionally as a shooting guard. Will that still be the case now? Obviously with Josh Hart primarily being out. We'll see. Before I put my filter to go ahead and show you guys what it looks like without the couple of those guys in here, here's the overall numbers for Mikal Bridges. He's cashed this line in 7 of his last 10 games, averaging 24.3 points plus assists per game. You do go ahead and stretch the data out a little further the last 20 games. Some pretty good numbers here. 14 of his last 20 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 23.35 points plus assists per game over his last 20 games. Stretch the data even further to the entire season view, a 51% hit rate on the year. 40 out of 79 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 21.53 points plus assists per game overall this season. From a head-to-head perspective, 4 of his last 7 matchups against the Pistons, he's cashed the over. That's a 57% hit rate, averaging 23.57 points plus assists per game over their last 7 matchups. And we do go ahead and narrow that down to just the 3 meetings as a member of the New York Knicks this year. The first time they met back in November, he did miss the mark narrowly. He finished with 18 points plus assists. But in the 2 subsequent matchups back on December 7th and then again on January 13th, he cashed the over pretty convincingly both times. So some pretty good head-to-head data here against Detroit. The insights provided by outlier Mikal Bridges has exceeded 20.5 points plus assists in 14 of his last 17 games. That's an 82% hit rate over his last 17 games, averaging 25.1 points plus assists per game over the last 17. Now, partially the reason why that is because obviously Jalen Brunson was out for a while, so you do see a lot of the Brunson. A lot of these games were when Brunson was out. Mikal Bridges obviously stepped up, got some more work in. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like when a couple of these guys are out. So there's not going to be a ton of data because they mostly play every game. Even Bridges has played 79 games this year, but games without Josh Hart and OG Anunoby, I don't even know if we have any games this year in that data range. We have 1. He's played 1 game back on February 20th against Chicago, and he didn't catch the over, surprisingly. He did play 43 minutes. What happened here? Didn't have a good shooting night, 6 for 16. Kind of a small sample size, not too much to go off of. Kind of surprising, though, because Chicago, obviously, not very good defensively. But not a ton to go off of here. I just think that with those guys being out, I wonder if let's see without OG Anunoby this year. All right, well that's not that's not super encouraging. So believe it or not, the data actually is worse without these guys. It doesn't really affect me though. I'm still taking the line because the data overall has been pretty solid. But that was shocking. Normally I look at this stuff before we start recording, but I was like, it's got to be good data. Like obviously with those guys being out, but actually the opposite. He's actually better when they're on the court, which surprisingly. Let's see what Josh Hart out. Same thing, 1 of 3. Yeah, not great numbers. He has cash before without him, but. That Chicago game obviously in there. That was when Anunoby and him were both out. The minutes thing doesn't really. That game he got blown out. So I don't know. I'm still gonna rock with his pick, but not too bad overall. Detroit overall defensively. Now they rank pretty good versus shooting guards overall this year. If you do narrow it down to the last 7 games, they're actually bottom 5 in at least points allowed. Assists allowed, they're still decent, but points allowed, they're actually bottom 5. So the data was not what I thought it was gonna be, honestly, with Anunoby and Josh Hart being out, but I'm still going to rock with the player prop because I still trust Mikal Bridges in this spot. So that's our second player prop in today's video. For our third player prop in this slate, we're sticking with the same game. We're going Cade Cunningham of the Detroit Pistons over 31.5 points plus rebounds, minus 110. Over on BetMGM is what we're taking it for. Data really good across the board. 8 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 34 points plus rebounds per game over his last 10 games. Stretch the data out to the entire season view, a 53% hit rate on the year, 36 out of 68 games. Cade Cunningham has cashed this over, averaging 31.99 points plus rebounds per game overall this year. Cade Cunningham having an incredible year for the Pistons, definitely deserves some praise. From a head-to-head standpoint, 4 of his last 5 matchups against the Knicks, he's cashed the over, including 2 of the 3 times they played this season, averaging 35 points plus rebounds per game across those last 5 matchups with the New York Knicks. Now, New York, especially over the last 7 games, they do rank pretty well defensively against the point guard position. Look at the overall numbers here, 18th in points, 7th in rebounds. So they rank overall this year pretty solid. If you do narrow it down to the last 7 games, they are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, especially in terms of points allowed to the point guard position. However, we have these players, I've talked about this many times before, these superstars who can transcend defensive matchups. Cade Cunningham, I do believe this year, has become a player who can transcend certain matchups. And the fact that he's already cashed this in 2 of 3 games against the Knicks this year makes me feel pretty confident that he'll go ahead and cash the over. Again, this one, there are some playoff implications in this game, of course, as well. The Pistons right now, they are the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. They are still within striking distance of Milwaukee. I do think Detroit's locked into the 6th seed at this point. I don't think they're going to move any further. They already clinched a playoff spot as well. So there really isn't too much at stake, but there is still that sliver of hope that they could jump from the 6th seed into the 5 spot. So there is still something at stake here. Cade Cunningham is going to play in this game. They're going to try and play spoiler for the Knicks here. But overall, I do like the spot, even if there isn't a ton at risk here. Cade's going to play. He's going to play his normal workload. That's the indication that I've gotten from my research. And I like the spot. So over 31.5 points plus rebounds for Cade Cunningham. That's our 3rd player prop in today's video. All right, guys, our 4th player prop in today's slate. We're moving on to the Hawks-Nets game, 7:30 p.m. tip-off. We're going with another guy who's burned me quite a bit, although the data is really solid. Trae Young, over 34.5 points plus assists. We are getting this one for minus 120 over on BetMGM. The data is great across the board. 8 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 36.7 points plus assists per game over his last 10 games. You go ahead and stretch the data out to the last 20. 14 of his last 20 games, a 70% hit rate, and he's cashing it at averaging 36.15 points plus assists per game over his last 20 games. So like I said, really good numbers. And even if you want to go ahead and stretch the data out to the entire season view, still pretty good. 55% hit rate, 41 out of 74 games. He's cashed the over, averaging 35.65 points plus assists per game overall this year. Not as impressive as the more recent data, but still pretty good numbers across the board here for Trae Young. And if all of that data didn't convince you guys, the head-to-head data also very strong here. At 100% hit rate, cashing in each of his last 4 matchups with the Brooklyn Nets, at 100% hit rate, averaging 43.25 points plus assists per game across the last 4 matchups with Brooklyn. His worst performance against the Nets across their last 4 meetings, back on December 6, 2023, he had 30 points and 9 assists. That's the worst performance he's had against Brooklyn across their last 4 meetings. Now, they played 2 times this year. Back on October 23rd, he had 30 points and 12 assists. In their more recent matchup, a little less than a month ago, back on March 16th, around St. Patty's Day there, he had 28 points and 12 assists. So he's hit 40 points plus assists both times he's played them this year. There are playoff stakes here for Atlanta. They currently hold the 8th seed in the East. That play-in spot, very important, but Chicago is nipping at the heels. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I checked it before we started recording, Atlanta has a half-game lead over Chicago for that 8th seed. Now, look, they're not catching Orlando. Orlando already has the 7th seed locked in. They're already confirmed to be in that spot, but you want to be in that 8th seed because you have basically 2 chances to make the playoffs. You get to play Orlando in that 8-7 game, 8-7 game, and then if you do lose, you get to play the winner of the 9-10 game. So this is really important because if you fall to the 9th spot, and let's say you lose to Miami, which Miami looks all but confirmed to be the 10th seed, you lose to Miami somehow, and now your season's over, single elimination. So there is a definite advantage to having the 8th seed. Atlanta, with a win here, would hold on to the 8th seed. So there is some importance here, and Trae Young has been playing very well of late. Now, Brooklyn overall this year, pretty solid defensively of late. Overall, not so much. Versus point guards, 15th in points, 23rd in assists. If you take the entire season's data into consideration, you do narrow it down, though, to the last 7 games. They actually rank pretty solid defensively, at least from a points allowed standpoint. But again, we talk about some of these superstars who can transcend defensive matchups. I do believe Trae Young, when he's cooking, and he has been cooking very well lately, they can rise above some of these things. So, and I think Brooklyn, they're an eliminated team. They don't really have much to play for here. There's more value to losing this game than there is to winning for them. You look at the guys out for them right now. No Cam Thomas, no D'Angelo Russell, no Cam Johnson. So they're missing a lot of their key guys here. So Atlanta should win this game, and Trae Young should have a pretty big performance. That's our 4th player prop in today's slate. And one more player prop, guys. I had to give one pick for this game because this is the most exciting game of the night. Minnesota, Memphis. Massive playoff implications in the Western Conference. 9:30 p.m. tip-off. I'm going Julius Randle here of the Minnesota Timberwolves over 11.5 rebounds plus assists. We're getting this one for -122 over on FanDuel. It's available on many sports books for a number of varying odds. Now, we're going to start with a narrow view and then stretch our way out to the overall view. So the last 5 games, pretty good numbers. 4 of his last 5 games, he's cashed the over, an 80% hit rate, averaging 12.6 rebounds plus assists per game over his last 5 games. Go to the last 10 game data. Not as good, but not bad either. 5 of his last 10, averaging 11.2 rebounds plus assists per game over his last 10 games. We go ahead and stretch it out to the last 20 games, 55% hit rate, averaging 11.5 rebounds plus assists per game over his last 20 games. Again, not too shabby. And then the overall data, a 56% hit rate on the season for Julius Randle. 37 out of 66 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 11.71 rebounds plus assists per game overall this season. So some pretty good numbers across the board. Again, not fantastic, but solid across the board here for Randle. A 56% hit rate on the season, honestly, is nothing to shake our heads at here. From a head-to-head perspective, he's cashed the over in each of his last 3 matchups against the Memphis Grizzlies, including both times he's played them this year as a member of the Timberwolves. His first one here as a member of the Knicks last season. But he's played them twice so far this year. Once on January 11th, and he had 16 rebounds plus assists. And again on January 20th, where he had 18 rebounds plus assists. So he cashed it both times this year and had some really, really big performances against Memphis in those categories. Versus power forwards this year, the Grizzlies 10th in rebounds allowed, 20th in assists. If you do narrow it down to the last 7 games, Memphis, they are bottom half of the league in both of those categories. So assists, they're still bottom 10. Rebounds, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, what I read before I started recording, should have wrote it down to be honest, but they were bottom half, I think like 19 or 20th in rebounds allowed to power forwards over the last 7. Don't quote me on that, but I know they're definitely bottom half of the league over the last 7 games in terms of rebounds allowed to the power forward position. So seems to be a pretty good matchup. 2 really big performances, and we go down here to the rebound chances and potential assists. He had 17 potential assists in their last meeting, and he finished with 7. So remember, he had 18 rebounds plus assists, but he could have done even more. He had 17 potential assists, finished with just 7. And rebounds, he had 19 rebound chances, finished with 11. So he had 36 rebound plus assist opportunities and finished with 18. So we could have did way more. So I think it's a pretty good matchup here. Randle, I think this is with obviously a big game here with massive playoff implications. One of the reasons why I liked Randle when the Timberwolves made the trade, and I know in hindsight now, I looked at the Knicks probably won it way more than the Timberwolves did. But beyond Randle being another scoring option for this team, was that when he wants to be, he's actually a really good passer and facilitator. And this could be a game here where we could see him operate with a lot of potential assist opportunities, some good rebound chances. So I do like the spot here for Randle a lot in a game where I think he's going to play a lot of minutes with massive playoff implications on the line. All right, guys, so that is it for me today. All 5 player props in today's NBA slate. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, guys, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. We'll be back tomorrow with our Freaky Friday 5-leg parlay and yet another NBA player prop video. But until then, guys, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy your Thursday. Let's go ahead and make some money.